welcome back to Samato on Bass. I had an interesting question regarding the Elf, the Trace Elliot Elf review from Robbie, who asked, is this amplifier going to be loud enough to play classic rock and sort of metal type tones for rehearsals and small gigs? And I think my answer, because you can't answer this in a straightforward fashion really, it can differ for different scenarios, was that it's something you'd probably have to try and see if it has enough power given the speakers that you're using. Kevin wrote in and said, yeah, I've tried this with a 212 box and it's quite loud with the volume at 12 o'clock. I agree, 100%. It's a loud little amp. It depends what you're playing against. If you've got a really loud drummer, really loud guitars in a reasonable sized room, and you like your tone with a fair bit of bottom end in it, dialing in that bottom end chews up a lot of power. Slapping those transients chew up a lot of power momentarily. So the thing that you need the most for that sort of thing is headroom. So if you absolutely dime a Class D amp, it's going to hit the limiter, and then it doesn't matter how much you dial it past there, the volume won't change. It's just that the limiter kicks in harder and harder and maintains it at a safe, for itself, not for your ears, volume. So if I found myself diming it up to those levels, then I would go to an amp like this, a GK 1001 RB. These things are used on stages and on big stages around the world. You see them quite often. They're 700 watts, plus if you buy amp, there's a 50 watt amp for the tweeter. It's a special 4 core cable. There's a switch on the back of the speaker. You can control the tweeter and the woofer separately with 2 controls on the front. We'll probably do a review on the amp in another video. Because this is still a current model, the 1001 RB2. So if you really need that loud amplifier and you need that headroom, which I recommend that you should always have headroom in your equipment, so it's not working flat stick all the time, then something like this is going to fit the bill. So when you get to that, you know, that slap, at that point, that transient is a lot louder than the signal behind it, which sort of trails off. That's where the amp needs the headroom. And I have used this with 2 of these 12-inch cabinets, and it is very, very loud. And if I'm playing at those levels, I always use hearing protection, which we'll talk about in the next video. It's very important to protect your hearing. So in answer to Robbie's question, yeah, the Elf is great. The trade-off is power against size. Class D against good old analog, I think Class H, whatever it is. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong anyway. These things are not as efficient as a Class D. A Class D is about 90% efficient. That's why they can be smaller. They have smaller transformers. They're a lot lighter. The footprint's a lot smaller. This has got a massive toroidal transformer in it, and it's got a very big heatsink, and it's got a very big fan on top of the heatsink to keep it all cool. Because they're not as efficient. They're probably about 20 or 30% efficient, you know, compared to a Class D. What they do have though is lots of power. So when you start to dial it up, it doesn't run out of steam. In fact, the speakers will reach the limits of their excursion before the amplifier gives up, you know, that much sort of power. So you might be running it at a relatively loud volume. It's still got enough for those transients that we spoke about. And that may be quite important in the music that you play. You want to hear those punches at the front of the note, whether you're picking or slapping or whatever it is you're doing. And this will give you that. Now the trade-off is size and weight, cost. Obviously this is about 3 times the cost, 2.5 to 3 times the cost of the Elf. You're going to need bigger speakers for this. So if you use this, say with a 410 and a 15 or two 410 boxes, it's very, very loud. It would sit on any stage against any drummer, no problem. It'll keep up, it'll go all night. Why I love the little, the Elf for the type of music that we play, it fits in the gig bag. The speakers for it can be small. It's loud enough, it's got enough power to do the gig. If that's your case, if you think that, you know, the other people in the band are not that loud, or you play the type of music that doesn't need to be that loud, it's all good, as long as you maintain a little bit of headroom. If you find that you're pushing it and diming it all the time, you won't be happy with the sound because it will be squashed and compressed, and then you just need to go to something bigger, something louder. So I quite like this amp. This is my amp of choice when I need power. I have another amp which is an Eden 550 Traveller, which is about 550 watts. Not much different to this. It's a totally different sound. It's a much prettier sound than the GK. So it's horses for courses, but 95% of the time I'm either just going through the front of house, or if I need a small amp for monitoring, I use a Roland Cube, and that's also a Class D. Now I know from experience there that if I dime that, it gets to that limit point and it just stays there, and then you can crank up the volume and it makes absolutely no difference at all. I suppose at the end of the day it depends on your exact requirements. For me, generally the Roland Cube or the Elf with a small cabinet is all good, works for me. Sometimes I will do shows that are bigger, they have no PA support, there's a big band, you've got to compete with more instruments and more sound, then the Eden or the GK come into play, and so does the hearing protection. And we'll talk about that in the next video because you need to protect your hearing. So I hope that helps answer the question. Any other questions, leave them in the comments feed, happy to answer them. Until next time, keep playing, keep having fun, look after yourselves, and thank you for watching.